Eternal Love and KOS. Break free. This is what it looks like when the mind is free. As we will learn today why the mind is not free. Sufyan Shah. This is what it looks like when the mind is not free. When the mind is under influence, as a body is under the influence of alcohol, things unseen takes place. From your nervous system throughout your whole biological system. To break free, we must know and understand mind influence. So we enter to know and for understanding of what is mind influence. Mind influence is described under Article 125, Canon 1334. This is what they don't want you to know. Mind influence. Mind influence is the deliberate use of certain properties and methods concerning the influence of mind to affect, manipulate, and change the mind of one or more higher order life forms, directly or indirectly, to achieve some relatively beneficial or detrimental result to the intended target, which is you. You are the target. You are the intended target to be under mind influence. Let's continue. Canon 1335. Mind control, also known as thought control, is the elaborate mind virus founded on the false belief. So mind control is founded on the false belief. And the false belief is the beginning of an elaborate mind virus. And the false belief of thought control, also known as mind control, others controlling your mind. That false belief is that free will, your free will, can be temporarily or permanently compromised. Therefore, the term mind control, thought control, is a term that is reprobate, suppressed, and not permitted to be revived. Now, we go into what are the elements of mind influence for you to be aware of. You need to be aware of Canon 1336 states, the key elements of mind influence are 5 elements. 5 elements always present. 5 elements always present in any formal system of mind influence. These 5 elements being the operator, known as the ultra conscious. The number 2, the subject, known as the super conscious. 3, the witness, also known as the subconscious. The properties, also known as interconsciousness. The methods, 5, also known as consciousness. So these 5, known as the operator, the subject, the witness, the properties, and methods. 1, the ultra conscious, the operator. The operator is the person performing the mind influence methods, known as the ultra conscious. The superconscious, number 2, is the subject. The subject is the subject mind that the operator seeks to influence. 3, the subconscious, the witness. The witness is any passive observer to the process that may validate its proper application. And 4 is the interconscious. What enters your conscious. Number 4, the properties. The properties are those generalized desires. Those generalized desired and behaviors used for you as triggers of influence by the operator. And last is the conscious. 5, the conscious. The methods. The methods are those methods used by the operator to administer the influence. Those are the 5 key elements of mind influence. To not have your mind under someone else's mind control, also known as thought control. You control self, or others control self. These properties are known as the 12 signs of the zodiac. They have been categorized as 1, safety, 2, privacy, 3, identity, 4, familiarity, 5, affinity, 6, morality, 7, credibility, 8, congeniality, 9, intimacy, 10, self-worthy, 11, luxury, and 12, spirituality. These are the 12 properties that enter the conscious for mind influence. And the 5 methods that are used by the operator is these methods. All methods of mind influence may be classified into 4 primary forms. The first form being autosis. Autosis is the indirect influence of mind and its perception of self through the subliminal manipulation of images, sound, information, and identification systems of self. That is called autosis. The second form is iconosis. Iconosis is the indirect influence of mind and its perception of its environment through the subliminal manipulation of images, sound, information, and identification systems of society and culture. The third form and method of mind influence is hypnosis. Hypnosis is the direct influence of mind through a self-induced trance state, during which the normal conscious filters suppressing certain existing memories or the formation of new untested memories are suspended in hypnosis. And the fourth form and method of mind influence is called cryptosis. Cryptosis is the direct influence of mind through hidden and mass-induced trance techniques, during which the normal conscious filters suppressing certain existing memories or the formation of new untested memories are suspended. And as you see on the screen, take a screenshot and study for self to know more how not to be under mind influence. Yes, we are back. Eternal Love and KOS. This article is what you have called brainwashing. If you have heard the term brainwashing, this is what they used. Mind terror. Mind terror, also known as brainwashing, is a word describing systematic, extremely negative mind influence to manipulate the minds of subjects to achieve the desires of the manipulators. So these are the tools that the manipulators use. The two emotions upon which all mind terror, all brainwashing is based are fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety are the two emotions which bring upon brainwashing, also known as mind terror. And so there are systems of mind terror, 3 types, based on the primary objective of the manipulator. The 3 systems is the ritual mind terror system, the political mind terror system, and the sexual mind terror system. These 3 are the systems. You can take a screenshot and study for more knowledge. You also have what is called ritual mind terror. The actions of Mind Terror is based on 5 fundamentally flawed and false concepts that the manipulator convinces the victim subject as true, being brutalization, resignation, assignation, damnation, obligation. These are actions that these are the actions that the manipulators use to manipulate our being. So as you get put up on game, share, spread, and make others aware. Political mind terror is based on 7 fundamentally flawed and false concepts, being animalization, traumatization, elimination, implantation, disassociation, suppression, recognition. These are all false concepts under mind influence. The most common perpetrators of mind terror are governments in maintaining systems of control. This is what all should know. The use of mind terror, including any laws, statutes, or orders that permit mind terror, is prohibited. As you become aware, your knowledge gives you rights. And so now we come to a term we are familiar with called psychology. Psychology is another mind influence term. Let's jump into the water of knowledge. Psychology is a term used to define an elaborate and false mind influence system purporting to be a science in the study of the human mind, human behavior, and animal behavior. Instead, psychology is a complex mind virus dedicated to the edification of the ancient mind virus of false belief called the ego. The false self. Canon 1363. While the word psychology is claimed in use from at least the 17th century, the emergence of psychology as a pseudo-science is largely a product of the 19th century into the 20th century. The word psychology is derived from 2 ancient Greek words, psyche, meaning breath, spirit, or soul, and logia, meaning study, research, education. Hence, the true original meaning of the word psychology is study of the soul. In contrast to the original meaning of the word psychology, the emergence of the pseudoscience of psychology in the 19th century and the early 20th century is founded on the premise that the soul does not exist. I repeat, the pseudoscience of psychology in the 19th and the early 20th century is founded on the premise that the soul does not exist. Thus, psychology is by definition a heretical and contradictory discipline to itself and its true meaning. As a complex mind virus, modern psychology is founded on a set of 8 false beliefs, being 1. Animalism, 2. Egoism, the false self, 3. Instinctivism, 4. Mentalism, 5. Behaviorism, 6. Traumatism, 7. Cognitivism, 8. Normalism. And you can take your screenshot and get more knowledge. As psychology is unable to provide a rational, reasonable, and comprehensive model of mind without using fundamentally false and flawed assumptions, all opinions, observations, analysis, and reports concerning the mind produced through the use of psychology alone is hereby null and void from the beginning. Any and all psychological evaluations, reports, and expert testimony in law is without force of law, scientific credibility, and is hereby null and void from the beginning, as psychology contains a high number of dangerous and flawed assumptions that risk damaging the health and the well-being of any higher order life forms exposed to psychology. The practice of psychology, the teaching of psychology, and the use of psychology is reprobate, suppressed, and never permitted to be revived. Now that we have covered mind influence, now they have created mind influence systems for minds to enter. So we're going to cover mind influence system. A mind canon 1369, a mind influence system is a comprehensive model and system designed to affect, manipulate, and change the mind of the entire populations of the Homo sapiens to achieve some relatively beneficial or detrimental results for the intended target population. So this is for the entire population. All praises to Allah for this revealing and this knowledge for us to protect ourselves by respecting ourselves. Canon 1370, the world's first mind influence system that eventually replaced physical slavery with voluntary slavery of the mind. I'm going to repeat that. That eventually replaced physical slavery with voluntary slavery of the mind. That is now called mental slavery. This was formed by the Jesuits and the Khazar and the Magyar elite nobles in the 16th century, called common law and democracy, first tested in England and then replicated throughout most of the world. So as you see, and just was made known, democracy is part of the world's first mind influence system. And here are the other systems that is used. is 1. This is 2. This is 3. This is 4. This is 5. This is 6. This is 7. This is 8. This is 9. This is 10. This is 11. This is 12. And that is the end of the mind influence systems. Now, we are covering the 5 states, the 5 systems of consciousness. Now, these are the 5 states of consciousness according to the canon. Canon 696, consciousness or conscious is a term used to define one of the 5 fundamental systems of the mind, exhibited primarily through a lucid, awake, and aware state, and the state of wakefulness itself as being conscious. And consciousness is one of the 3 systems of the lower mind. By definition, unconscious means without knowledge, which is contradictory to the purpose and function of the mind. The term unconscious is forbidden to be used as a valid term to define an element of mind. So these are your conscious, dealing with the first system of the 5. You can take screenshots. I'm going to be moving forward and just give the description, and you can study the knowledge for yourself. Next is the second system, is the interconscious. The interconscious is a term used to define one of the 5 fundamental systems of the mind that is fundamental to learning, processing, emotions, messaging, retrieval, and managing connections between the other 3 systems of mind. Interconscious is one of the 3 systems of the lower mind, which is the second system of the lower mind. Now we're going to the third system of consciousness, subconscious. Subconscious is a term used to define one of the 5 fundamental systems of the mind that is fundamental to the storage, retrieval of memories and retrieval of emotions. Subconscious is one of the three systems of the lower mind. This is the third system of the lower mind. The fourth system of the system of consciousness is the superconscious. The superconscious, also known as higher self, is a term used to define one of the 5 fundamental systems of mind that is fundamental to the source of inspiration, imagination, wisdom, intuition, and enlightenment. Superconscious is the system of the higher mind. And the last system of consciousness, which is the fifth. The fifth system is the ultra-conscious. Ultra-conscious, also known as the divine self, is a term used to define one of the 5 fundamental systems of mind that represents true, perfected memory, divine soul, and divine spirit. Ultra-conscious is the system of the divine mind. Now we learn what is mind virus. A mind virus is an information-based agent that can replicate itself inside the mind, causing abnormal conditions affecting the mind and body of a higher order life form. The mind virus is an infectious, pathogenic, information-based agent. A mind virus is equivalent to the mind as a computer virus to a computer system. While a state of mind may be severely restricted in performance, temporarily or permanently, due to a disease affecting the biological apparatus of mind, the only valid pathogen of diseases of the mind are mind viruses, not biological. Mind viruses are found in almost every class of men and women in every civilization, and the most abundant class of pathogens affecting the optimum function of individuals and health of societies. The function, the physiology of a mind virus is to implant a disinformation agent program known as a nexus into the mind of a subject, and for the nexus to replicate part or all of itself internally into new long-term memories or restored memories, and externally through commonly expressed information to others. A mind virus agent program known as a nexus is constructed from two or more disinformation kernels known as fallacies, or may be constructed of other nexuses in a self-referencing chain. A fallacy of a mind virus consists of three components, being a mysnoid, a factoid, and concloid. A factoid is usually an acknowledged fact, self-evident or known well enough to be considered true. Mysnoid is the deliberate or unknowing false claim presented as the second fact that, when presented together with the factoid, sounds credible. 3. Concloid is the deliberate false conclusion connected to the mysnoid that is the core falsity to be delivered within the factoid, the fallacy. And our last word of mind influence that we will cover from the mind influence system is the ego. We have heard of the word ego. Here is the knowledge. Ego is a word commonly used to define the self-identification of itself, and more specifically, in reference to a highly complex and ancient mind virus, specifically designed to keep the lower self distracted and disconnected from the higher self and divine self. The word ego originates from the ancient Latin ego, meaning I. All higher order life forms possesses a form of self. However, the Homo sapiens species is unique in possessing the sophisticated self, defining and self-referencing mind virus known as ego. All members of the Homo sapiens species possesses the very ancient reptilian mind virus program known as ego. Ego is not the same as self, as self denotes the identity and unity of three minds, three wills, and three self-identities. Whereas ego separates and divides as a mind virus seeks to usurp the higher functions and assume itself as the supreme and singular I. The prime directive of ego is to keep minds separate from each other and from the divine self. from the unique collective awareness, the divine self. The pure expression of ego is the manifestation of unrestrained gratification of the lower self, of pleasure and desire without honor, without virtue, and without empathy, with no conception or acceptance of responsibility for the consequences. As the prime directive of the ego, as the ancient mind virus, is to keep the minds divided, separate from each other. And the unique collective awareness, the divine self. There are three forms of ego, mimicking the three selves, the three minds. The first form of ego, the lower ego. The second form, the higher ego. The third form, the super ego. Psychology may be defined as the craft and art of ego. And psychology spread and promotion as a mind virus, which goes with the three forms of the ego in psychology. The superego, also known as spiritual ego, also known as super ego, in psychology cannot infect the divine mind, cannot infect the divine self, but instead seeks to pretend, to be the divine mind by claiming to be a higher conscious in the form of judgment, condemnation, and fanatical behavior. Should a particular mind rebel against lower and higher ego pressure of pleasures. A consistent trait of ego is what ego says, and what ego does is wholly contradictory. As ego is deeply ingrained within the inherited programming of all Homo sapiens, there is no absolute cure, only gradual and progressive reduction of its effects through true knowledge of self and discipline and disease management. Ego has no cure either in psychology or in biology, biological and psychological. This concludes the knowledge of mind influence and the components of mind influence and the systems they have established as mind influence systems. You are aware. By knowledge, you are aware. Spread, share, and make others aware. Eternal love and K.O.